I haven't told this story to many people, and honestly, I don't think most would believe it anyway. But I was there. I saw it with my own eyes. I was 16 years old when it happened, back in the early 1950s in a small village that probably doesn't even appear on maps anymore. That day started off like any other. My Uncle Luis and my Aunt Maria asked if I wanted to come along for a walk to the lake. It was about an hour outside the village, a place they liked to visit when the weather started to change. They said it was going to be the first big rain of the year, and they wanted to go out before the storm came in. We weren't alone. A man named Elias came with us. He wasn't a relative, but he had been friends with my Uncle Luis since they were kids. Elias was different. Not in a crazy way, but in a way that made you notice him. People in the village whispered about his family. Some were afraid of them because of the things they were said to do. Rituals, strange practices passed down for generations. Others respected them because they were also known as healers. They were the ones people turned to when someone in the village got sick and doctors were too far away or too expensive. Elias came from a long line of shamans, and you could feel that weight on him, even in silence. My Uncle Luis used to tell me stories about things Elias had done, things that didn't make sense. One story stuck with me. Luis swore it was true. He said one time, years ago, he and Elias had gone swimming in the lake. After a while, Luis said he was hungry. Elias asked if he wanted something to eat. Luis thought he was joking, but said yes. Then Elias told him to wait. Elias took a breath and went under. Luis kept his eyes on the water, expecting him to come back with a fish or just empty-handed. But about 20 seconds later, Elias rose up, calm and quiet, holding a thick cloth bundle in his arms, like he had gone down there to retrieve it on purpose. They swam to shore, and Elias laid the bundle on the grass. When he unwrapped it, there were thick chunks of roasted meat, fresh bread, and what looked like food straight off a fire. Luis said he could still see steam rising from it, and the smell hit him right away. Grilled meat, warm bread. But what made him pause was the cloth. It wasn't wet, not even damp. Luis had watched Elias go underwater with nothing in his hands, and yet here he was, standing over a dry cloth full of hot food. When Luis asked how that was possible, Elias just said, "There are secrets I can't tell you. Just eat." That day at the lake, I saw something even stranger. The sky was heavy with dark clouds, like it was ready to break open at any second. The air had that electric feeling before a storm. We reached the edge of the lake, and for a while we just stood around talking. Then Elias pulled out a small handmade kite from his bag, something simple but strong enough to catch the wind. I remember thinking it was a weird time to fly one with the storm so close. My uncle asked him about it, and Elias just smiled and said, "You want to see something incredible?" Luis and Maria looked at each other, then nodded. Elias called me over and handed me the kite. "You fly it," he said. Then he walked away from us and began murmuring something under his breath. I couldn't hear what it was. He came back and told me to fly the kite as high as I could until it reached the dark part of the sky. I told him the wind might snap the string if it got too high. He didn't answer. Instead, he stepped forward, touched the kite string, and started whispering again, a different tone this time, more intense. I felt the string pulled tight in my hands, like it had suddenly become stronger, tougher. I did what he asked. I let the kite climb higher and higher until it disappeared into the clouds. Then Elias came back to the string and started saying something else, louder this time, and in a language I didn't recognize. He kept going for maybe 3 minutes. When he stopped, he looked at us and said, "Stand behind me. And don't interact with anything that comes down. Juan, no matter what happens, don't let go of that kite." At first, nothing happened. Then we saw them. 2 small black spheres attached to the string, slowly making their way down. They didn't look solid. They looked soft, almost like they were made of smoke or flesh. Elias handed me a pair of scissors and said, "When I say cut, you cut. Fast. Don't hesitate." The spheres hovered maybe 15 feet away from me, then stopped. Elias stepped forward and began whispering again. The 2 spheres dropped to the ground, and right there in front of us, they started to change. Their shape shifted slowly, like something was pressing out from inside. After a few seconds, they became 2 small children, a boy and a girl. All of us stood there, stunned. Watching them descend from the clouds and take form right in front of us felt like something out of a dream. It was terrifying, beautiful, and completely unnatural. The children were strange and graceful, their features unnervingly flawless, like porcelain dolls brought to life. Then the children turned toward Elias and began speaking to him in soft voices, using the same strange language he had spoken earlier. Maria asked quietly, "What are they saying?" Elias replied, "They want to go back. They say if the cloud moves on, they won't be able to return to where they came from." Maria stared at him. "Where are they from? What are they?" Elias hesitated. Then he said, "They are spirits of the wind. Elemental beings. They're part of the natural world. Rare, ancient, and very powerful." We all stood there, frozen, unsure of what to do. The children, if you could call them that, kept looking up at the clouds, then at Elias, almost pleading. Maria stepped closer. "They look terrified," she said. "Please, let them go. They don't belong here." Elias shook his head. "You don't understand. Spirits like these have many uses. Witches and shamans use them to find lost people, hidden things, sometimes even to create bonds. They can become familiars." Maria blinked. "What does that mean?" Elias glanced at her, then at the children. "A familiar is a spirit bound to a person through a ritual. It forms a spiritual link, a kind of pact. That connection allows the spirit to act on behalf of the one who summoned it. That bond can be used to heal, protect, or even harm." Maria's voice sharpened. "I don't care what they can do. Look at them. They're begging. If you keep them here, it won't be right. I swear, Elias, if you go through with this, I won't forgive you." Luis finally stepped in, his tone calm but firm. "She's right. You brought us here, Elias, but this isn't what we thought it would be. Let them go." Elias looked between the 2 of them. There was tension in his face, something close to regret. Then finally he sighed and walked over to the children. He placed a hand gently on each of their heads and murmured another prayer, softer this time. The children smiled. They turned, touched the string, and slowly transformed back into black spheres. Then they floated upward, back into the sky. We watched as they disappeared into the clouds. We kept staring at the sky, thinking that had to be the end of it. But it wasn't. From the same patch of cloud, a new shape began to form. Another sphere, this one much bigger than the others. The difference was massive. The moment it appeared, the wind picked up sharply. A low howl rolled through the trees, and lightning cracked across the sky in every direction. The storm seemed to come alive the instant that massive sphere appeared. I turned to Elias. He looked pale, his face dripping with sweat. Luis looked at him. "What is that thing?" Elias didn't take his eyes off the sphere. "Cut the kite, now!" I didn't hesitate. I took the scissors and cut the string. The moment I did, the string whipped upward, like something had yanked it hard. The huge sphere stayed there for a few more seconds, then slowly faded back into the clouds. We all stood there, frozen. Luis turned to Elias again. What was that thing? Elias looked at us, still visibly shaken. That wasn't something we were ever supposed to see. If it had followed the others down, none of us would be here right now. That thing isn't like them. It's something else. My grandfather once told me, if you ever come across that black sphere, be careful. Avoid it at all costs. They say it's a guardian, a protector of the lesser spirits. But no one really knows. After that, Elias didn't say much more. He just stared at the sky for a long time. We didn't talk on the way back. Everyone was quiet, trying to process what had happened. Years later, I still think about that day, about what I saw, about what could have happened if Elias hadn't acted when he did. And sometimes, when I see a storm rolling in, I find myself looking up at the clouds, just in case. My name is Chris. I'm 23, and I live in a mid-sized city near San Vicente in El Salvador. I've never been the kind of person who believes in ghosts or anything paranormal. Honestly, I used to think all those stories were just meant to scare kids. That night, I got off work late. It was after 11 when I left the restaurant and started driving home, which is out past the city in a more rural area. I've always liked it there. Quiet, surrounded by trees, even if the roads get pretty empty at night. I was half lost in my own thoughts, bills, my long shift, just life. When out of nowhere, my car started acting up. I barely had time to pull over before it completely died. I sat there for a while, hoping it would start again. It didn't. I popped the hood, checked the obvious stuff, but I'm no mechanic. Eventually I had to decide, walk back into the city to try and find a taxi, or keep walking toward my house. It was far, but I figured the walk might clear my head. Besides, I could come back with my grandpa the next day to take care of the car. So I started walking. I hadn't gone more than 20 minutes when I came across the shortcut. It was a narrow trail, crowded with tall trees, lit only by my flashlight. I knew that path from when I was a kid, though I'd never actually taken it. My grandpa always told me never to go through there, warning me about some black dog that showed up on that trail. Said if I ever saw it, I should run and not look back. As a kid, I took it seriously. Now, honestly, it seemed ridiculous. I figured he just said that to keep me from wandering into the woods. So I tightened my grip on the flashlight and took the shortcut. I'd get home faster. And at that point, all I wanted was my bed. At first, everything was normal. Dry leaves underfoot, cool air. I only heard my own steps, but as I walked deeper in, I started picking up small noises around me. Twigs snapping, something moving in the brush. I told myself it was probably possums or maybe armadillos. They're common around here. I repeated that to myself over and over, even though the feeling that something was following me kept growing. Trying to calm down, I looked around for something to use as a weapon, found a thick stick on the ground and gripped it tight. I kept walking, but not with the same confidence. Every so often, I'd swing my flashlight to the sides, seeing nothing. Somewhere about halfway through the trail, I felt it, like two eyes drilling into my back. I spun around, shining my light, and caught sight of something moving between the trees. A huge shadow shaped like a dog, gone almost as soon as I saw it. I stood there, breathing hard, telling myself it was probably just my imagination. I kept walking, but maybe 5 minutes later, something darted across the path ahead of me. A black blur, vanishing into the underbrush on the other side. That's when I really started to panic. I stopped, listened, and the woods were completely silent. Too silent. I thought about running, but convinced myself that sprinting through the dark was just asking to break an ankle. So I forced myself to keep going, even though every step felt heavier than the last. I don't know how long passed, but at some point I heard a different kind of crack, louder. When I lifted my light, something was slowly stepping out from between the trees. At first it was just a shape, but when it fully emerged onto the trail, I got a good look. It was a massive black dog. Almost as tall as me. I'm about 6'1". Its fur was so dark it seemed to swallow the beam from my flashlight. It just stood there, head lowered, teeth bared, letting out this deep growl like it was holding itself back from lunging. My body moved before my brain could catch up. I took a step back, then another. I turned to run back toward the city, toward my car, toward anything. And that's when I saw another dog, just as huge, but completely white. So white it almost glowed, like it didn't even need my flashlight. It was staring at me with eyes I can't really describe. They didn't look like an animal's eyes, or a person's either. I froze. I thought for sure I was done. 2 animals that size. There was no way I could outrun them. The white dog started moving toward me, growling. I shut my eyes for a second, bracing for it to slam into me, for teeth, for pain, whatever. But when I opened them, I realized it wasn't looking at me. Its eyes were locked on the black dog. It walked right past me without so much as brushing against me. Then it lunged. What followed was chaos. Snarls, bites, bodies slamming into trees. The fight was so violent I felt the ground shake beneath my feet. For a second I thought about taking my chance and bolting. But then I remembered what my grandpa used to say. If you ever see the black dog and the white one shows up, don't leave the white dog's side. That's the one that'll protect you. So I stayed, gripping that useless stick, shaking, watching the white dog drive the black one back until it finally broke off and vanished into the woods. The white dog stood there on the trail staring at me. I don't know how to explain it, but I understood in that moment it wasn't going to hurt me. I even felt like it was telling me to follow. So I did. We walked together along that trail. The longest, quietest walk of my life. The dog kept glancing to the sides, sniffing the air. And even though the noises in the brush never really stopped, branches cracking, something running alongside us, it never left my side. When we finally reached the edge of my property, the white dog stopped. It looked at me, almost like it was giving me a warning I couldn't quite put into words. Something like, "Don't ever take that path again." Then it turned and slipped back into the darkness. That's when I ran. I nearly tore my front door off its hinges getting inside. My grandpa came out of his room looking worried. He asked why I was so late, but when he saw the state I was in, shaking, pale, out of breath, he didn't press. I told him everything. He listened without interrupting. Then he let out this long sigh, looked me straight in the eyes and said, "What you saw? Those weren't dogs. Around here, we call them the cadellos, the black one. He doesn't just chase people. He tries to break you, twist your thoughts, drive you mad so you wander off where nobody can ever find you. Some say he steals what's left of your soul. The white one, he only appears if there's still something good left in you, something worth protecting. It's like he shows up to balance things out so the black one doesn't get free rein. I've heard stories my whole life. People who went down the wrong path and never came back. Others who got saved at the last second by the white cadejo. You were lucky tonight, Chris. Luckier than you even know." I didn't sleep much after that. And ever since, even driving by that stretch of road in daylight, I can't shake the feeling that something's still out there. This story has been whispered through generations in the Andes, passed down by families who've lived there. Some brush it off as old legend. Others hush their voices like it's more than just talk. In Spanish, they call it La Procesión de los Gatos, literally the cat procession. But the closest way to describe it in English would be the Night of the Cats. It's said that once in a while, under certain conditions, Dozens of cats appear and walk in formation, carrying something or someone. People say it's a ritual, that they carry the dead, or worse, that it's something they've always done, quietly, in the dark, when no one's watching. This happened in the 1970s when I was still young, living in a small village tucked deep in the Andes. It was the kind of place where people knew each other by name, where nights were silent except for the wind, and maybe the occasional dog barking in the distance. That night I was at a friend's house just outside of town. He lived maybe 5 minutes away by foot near the edge of a river that marked the boundary between the village and the mountains. We were drinking, laughing, nothing unusual. Around midnight, I said my goodbyes and started walking home alone. The path back to the village followed the river. There were no streetlights, only the dim glow of my old flashlight. A few minutes in, I started hearing something strange. Cats, lots of them, meowing softly in waves. Dozens of voices, all coming from down by the riverbank. I don't know what made me stop and look, but I stepped off the path and quietly made my way through the brush to get a better view. And that's when I saw it. There were dozens of cats, easily more than 80, gathered in a semicircle near the edge of the river. And in the center of them, they were carrying another cat. It was a large black cat, lying limp as if it were dead. They moved slowly, methodically, like they were part of some silent funeral. At first I was frozen. Then something about it made me uneasy, maybe fear, maybe instinct. I bent down to pick up a rock just in case I needed to scare them off. But as I crouched, I saw something else. 2 enormous black cats, the size of panthers, standing at the edge of the crowd. Their eyes glowed yellow, and their heads slowly turned toward me, even though I hadn't made a sound. And behind them, there was a figure, human-shaped, tall, completely still, dressed in black. I couldn't make out a face, just the shape of someone or something standing motionless in the dark. And I swear, it was looking right at me. Then it spoke, not out loud, not like a voice in the air. It was inside my head, a low whisper. You saw what is not yours to see. Immediately, every single cat turned to face me. No hissing, no growling, just dead silence, and hundreds of eyes fixed on me. My heart nearly stopped. I backed away, stumbling over rocks, then turned and started walking fast back toward the village. But after a few steps, I felt something was wrong. I looked behind me. The cats were following me, all of them. They kept a distance, never made a sound, but every time I stopped, they stopped too. They followed me into the village. I wanted to scream, to wake someone up, but something held me back. Maybe fear, maybe shame, maybe something else entirely. Even in town, the streets were dark. The village had almost no lights back then. I could barely see the path in front of me, but I kept walking. When I finally reached my house, I pulled out my keys with shaking hands, and that's when I heard it. A heavy thump, like something had jumped down from a roof nearby, something large, right behind me. Then I heard the same voice again. This time, it wasn't in my head. It was right next to my ear. You saw what is not yours to see. I don't remember how, but I got the door open and slammed it shut behind me, locked it. I ran to the window, outside. In the dim light from the moon, I saw one of the giant black cats sitting in the street, staring directly at the window, and around it were all the other cats, completely still, completely silent, just watching. They stayed there for what felt like forever. Then, one by one, they vanished into the darkness. The next morning, when I woke up and started thinking about what had happened, for a moment I told myself maybe it was just a dream, or maybe it was the alcohol. But deep down, I knew it was real, every part of it. And one thought kept circling in my head. Where did all those cats come from? I've lived in that village my whole life. There were maybe 100 people, tops, and I knew almost everyone. I'd been inside most of their homes. Only 2 or 3 people I knew even owned cats. And in that entire area, you almost never saw a stray cat around here. The nearest village is hours away on foot. There's no way all those cats came from here. No way they belong to anyone.